Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer meta got shaken up a little bit with the Season 2 Reloaded update. And so with that today, I wanted to go through and break down the new top 10 best class setups for MW3 multiplayer specifically. We're starting off first with one of my absolute favorites in the game, the SVA 545. This ended up becoming a little bit more aggressive. They buffed the mobility on it some, which is really nice to see. Not really super game changer by any means, but it was already a good rifle and now it's even more aggressive and an aggressive MP playstyle, so it's a win-win, I would say. As far as the setup here goes, initially I do like the ZEM35 compensator on this for multiplayer. You know, 722 velocity is going to be just fine in a lot of the fights you're taking, and it makes the gun a little bit easier. I also go for the angled underbarrel. This just helps out with your horizontal control. It actually hurts your vertical a little bit, but there's not much on this thing to begin with, and even if you're playing in semi-auto, you wouldn't even need an underbarrel. You could swap this to something else to make it even more aggressive because the hyper burst is no recoil. But for full auto, I like the stability of having good horizontal control on there. I go for the glassless optic. I love this for any ranged based weapon basically right now in MP, just because you're not fighting at 70, 80, 90 meters like you would in Warzone. This covers all bases, right? And it's so clean, helps out the firing aim stability. It's clutch for sure. I go for the R11 stock here, helps out with movement across the board, hurts your idle sway a little bit, which is unfortunate, but the movement benefits it offers I feel like are solid. Plus it helps out the firing aim stability. I also go for the Citadel rear grip here, helps out with some control and a little bit of ADS speed as well, only hurting your flinch, but with how fast the TTK is in MP as is, not really a huge deal. SVA is feeling really nice though in MP right now. And as far as the remainder of the class setup goes, this is actually the same on all the setups here today, so we only have to go through this once. As a secondary, I do like using the Renetti with the conversion kit on it a lot. It just feels really solid as like a nice secondary SMG pistol hybrid. Although in multiplayer, you're getting so many kills and so many weapons are dropping on the ground, you could just swap this out for an actual real SMG or a real rifle whenever you really need. But carbine kit on there, of course, turns it into that full auto SMG. It clips your rear grip for the better sprint to fire and movement speed. 24 round extended mag just helps out when it is full auto. Hollow point ammo to slow some players down if I hit them in their legs. Then I also go for the diode laser here just to improve some sprint to fire, some ADS speed, just makes it snappier and a little bit more aggressive there. So really solid secondary build for MP. I'm going with stuns. They're super powerful, no surprise there. Semtexes are my native choice, although thermobarics are good. Knives are obviously crazy. Frags are good too. Really just pick your poison there. I always go for the Muni from field upgrade if I'm going on high streaks. I want to make sure I have plenty of ammo. I don't want to have to rely on someone's random build if I don't need to, so if I can resupply my own, that's obviously clutch. I do go for the infantry vest as well, I should mention, so it's going to help out that tac sprint time, make it faster and longer. And with that, I go for the commando gloves so I can sprint and reload at the same time, tac pad so I can slide cancel really seamlessly, then bone conduction headset for better audio. Like I said, that's the same with all the other remaining weapons we've got here today. Now, next up, I've got the Ram 9, and this is an MP setup that I really enjoy. It, at first glance, doesn't really seem like it'd be something you'd run a ton of, and like compare it to Warzone, not even close, but here in MP with how it plays, I just love the feel of it. So initially with this, I'm actually going for the suppressed barrel. Now, this was actually buffed with Season 2 Reloaded, which is nice to see, but it helps out with your general mobility, your sprint to fire, your ADS, your strafe, hurts your range and your velocity a little bit, but for SMGs, it's still going to be just fine when you're running and gunning with this thing, and it also keeps you off the radar, so that's an added pro on there too. The Razor Hawk laser sight, this thing is bright, it stands out, but holy, you fly and fry with this thing. It's got sprint to fire and ADS speed benefits like crazy. Love the feel of it. It's just so aggressive, and I'm going all in on mobility with this thing. Skeletal vertical grip keeps the mobility up there, ADS and sprint to fire benefits, but it also helps out a little bit with recoil control, so that's a win-win as well. 40 round extended mag here I do go for. I just wasn't really feeling the base mag there. 40 is a nice safety net, especially when you are playing aggressive. You run through ammo a lot, so nice to have that as like sort of that, like I said, safety net backup. You're not going to have to worry about running out of ammo in certain fights. Then motion tac pad stock on here just helps out that sprint to fire and ADS even more. So this thing flies, this thing fries, feels super good. Hey everyone, quickly wanted to give a shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. We've got our in-game metas that we of course talk about all the time, but we also got to show some love to the out-of-game metas as well. And the most effective tactic available, the meta for staying focused and energized, is picking up some G Fuel. They got a little bit of something for everyone in terms of flavors, but my personal favorites, Hype Sauce, The Goat. They also just brought back Watermelon Mint, which is absolutely incredible. And lately, I've also been loving the new Sage Mode Hydration Tub as well. There's no caffeine in that, just perfect for staying hydrated. And if you do want to pick up anything for yourself, be sure to throw in code IMMORTAL at checkout for a nice little discount. The link for that will be down below if you're interested. Now, next up, we've actually got our brand new battle rifle for Season 2 Reloaded, the SOA Subverter. This thing is a ton of fun. It fries. It's got a really, really good damage profile here in MP. It's also so easy. This thing has like no recoil whatsoever. In fact, I don't even go all in on recoil control on this build because it's so easy. You can help out in other areas and make this a very versatile battle rifle. Also, super clean iron sights, so we don't have to waste an attachment on any optics here. Instead, I go for the handler rear grip, which actually helps out with that sprint to fire speed and just makes it a tad bit more aggressive. The other grips not really doing it all that much for me, and a lot of the stocks aren't really all that great either because they slow you down a lot. So this helps and just makes it a tad bit more aggressive. I just go for the 30 round extended mag in multiplayer. 50 is also viable. It's just a little bit slower, not super necessary, but it works if you really want those extra 20 shots. DR6 hand stop, it's going to speed you up even more. Better mobility, strafe, ADS, sprint to fire, so keeping it nice and aggressive as a rifle build. But then we got the long barrel on here, helps out the range, velocity, the control, the sway. So you can fight at 10 meters with this thing, or you can fight at 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters with this thing, and it's still going to be accurate and lethal across the board. Lastly, we got the compensator, the ZEM35 on here. Shorter radar pings, helps out with the vertical and horizontal control, and only hurts your velocity and ADS speed a little bit. Not a huge deal for some solid pros there for sure. So this thing in multiplayer feels really good. Really enjoying this thing so far. Following that, I've got the Rival 9. This has been a go-to SMG pretty much since launch. It has just insane mobility stats. This thing flies across the map, especially with the attachments we have on here. Some boosted up even more. Also really quick TTK. I just love how aggressive this is. Small map mosh pit. If I'm trying to just go for high kills, if I need XP for like an event or something, this is probably what I'm running the majority of the time here. So initially I go for the spiral flash hider. You could use a different compensator like ZEM35 if you wanted to, but like this just works. Good recoil control across the board and not really a ton in terms of like ADS speed that we can't get back elsewhere. Got the DR6 hand stop. As I said, we're increasing that mobility even more. Movement, strafe, sprint to fire, ADS. The Kimura laser, similar to the Blackhawk, whatever the other one was called, ends up going crazy on the ADS speed and sprint to fire. So it's bright, but it also has a lot of pros. And let's be honest, if someone can see your laser, they can probably already see you as is on a lot of these maps. We got the Vice Assault Grip. Basically, is going to be free control for your SMG style fights. Usually, we don't want to put on attachments that hurt idle sway all that much, but for close range, it's not going to be a big deal there. Then lastly, the tactical stock helps out with general mobility there. The hip fire a little bit if you're transitioning back and forth. So really just speeds it up, makes it even more aggressive, and it's already very easy to use to begin with. So also really enjoying the Rival 9. Still not really many changes with this one. Next up, we got the MCW, another mainstay in the general multiplayer meta pretty much since launch. Low recoil, high damage. It's the best of both worlds. That's the two most important things. Is the gun easy to use, and does it have good damage? Can it kill quickly? Yes and yes. Okay, you're pretty much set, right? And I mean, this thing, it feels so good. It's the ACR. It's one of my favorite guns in the game for multiplayer. Got the Cassis break on here. Initially makes this thing shoot so straight. It's basically impossible to not hit shots consistently with this thing. Mammoth heavy barrel helps out with the range and the velocity mainly, alongside a little bit of movement speed, which is a nice added bonus, I guess. Angled underbarrel, yet again, minimal cons outside of the vertical control penalty, which is not a huge deal here. I also go for the glassless optic, one of my new favorites. Then the Venom stock helps out with the movement speed, sprint speed, and strafe speed. Just makes it a little bit more aggressive, so you could use it in like the mid-range and the close range if you find yourself in those situations. MCW, again, also not really changing all that much as of late. It still just gets the job done very nicely. And by the way, as we are going through all the setups here today, if you are new to the channel or you simply have not subscribed yet, every single day I got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns between MW3 and Warzone. So feel free to hit that sub button to always stay up to date. And if you enjoyed this video or if you find it helpful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. Now brace yourselves, because next up, we are actually talking about an MW2 gun for once. It's not often we get to talk about them this year because they just seem so obsolete in so many ways, but they ended up buffing the MP5, the Lachmann sub, with Season 2 Reloaded, only for multiplayer, and it's feeling good, especially in multiplayer where the TTK is already fast. You could probably get away with using it to begin with, but now it's actually really competitive, which is nice to see for once. Unfortunately, a lot of the MW2 attachments just suck. Like, there's not really many good stocks or rear grips that really complement this thing. So we're going for a 40 round extended mag. That works fine for multiplayer. We've got the Kimura laser sight, yet again, bright, but also very efficient at speeding this thing up and making it snappy and aggressive. I do go for the Falcon barrel. Helps out with some general mobility here as well. Hurts the control a little bit. Not a huge deal for the close range fights though. We got the hand stop on here. Yet again, same deal as always. Then again, I go for the ZEM35 compensator as well, just to make it a little bit easier to use. Get some of that control back that we lose with the barrel, but still keeps it it pretty aggressive overall. Nice to see, though, that an MW2 sub is actually being talked about. Now, incoming major nerf that just drastically changes it for no reason, because it's finally in a competitive scenario with the MW3 subs. It's been a while, but hey, we're finally here. Now, the Bruen saw some solid updates across the board. Basically, it's just now more aggressive than it's ever been, and it's already been a pretty viable LMG for more aggressive gameplay, at least with this style of weapon, right? So nice to see that it's being buffed up even more to be more versatile in general. Also, just one of my favorite guns in the game, just because it's so similar to that of MW 2019 and Warzone 1's Bruen. But initially here, I'm going for the Horizon barrel. Helps out a little bit with that control and that velocity, just makes it pretty easy to use. Ferocity would also be very good as well, though, for better range and better velocity. So either or is going to work great here for multiplayer. Going for the Bruen heavy support in this case, really just make it feel very easy to use, especially because we speed it up in some cases. We want to make sure we got that good control in there. And then the firing aim stability is obviously a huge pro to have whenever you can get that. 60 round magazine here. It's going to speed it up a ton across the board as opposed to just the base 100, which is pretty bulky, pretty heavy. For MP, we want to be as snappy and as aggressive as possible. Glassless optic kit. Again, the irons here are way too bulky to use. Then I go for the iron bar stock. Unfortunately, it's hurting my idle sway a little bit. Luckily, we've gained some of that back elsewhere, and it helps out a ton with that strafe speed. 13%, also a little bit to the sprint speed. So again, making it a little bit more versatile and aggressive, and it hits like a truck. Thing is a beast. Loving it post season 2 reloaded. Now here we got the MTZ-556. Also really enjoy the feel of this one in multiplayer. It's an aggressive rifle that really you can go all in with. Build it to be basically a do-it-all weapon. If you want to use it in the close range and run and gun, the setup does work pretty well for that. If you want to use it in the mid range, absolutely fries. Long range, it's low enough recoil that you can still fry, you know, get players off of headies or whatever the case may be, hold down choke points. It's doing it all. So initially here, I go for the Archangel stock, which is going to help out with some firing aim stability, always clutch, and some basic control. It's only hurting your tack stance spread, which you're not really doing with this build, and then your sprint to fire, which is not a huge deal at the end of the day. So it actually works really, really nicely in our favor. I go for the angled underbarrel yet again, minimal cons, a little bit of vertical control, not a bad thing to trade off for some better gun kick and some better horizontal control. Castus break, again, attacking that horizontal and giving us some better firing aim stability. So it's going to be a laser beam. I go for the long barrel. Range, velocity, control makes it a lot more versatile. Doesn't really slow it down all that much though. So this thing can be built to be run and gun, even with this setup, which is mainly built for like mid range and long range, right? It's going to be able to hold its own even in some of those close range fights too. So definitely very versatile, and it kills quick, which you love to see. Next up, we've got the Holger 556, another one of my favorite choices here in multiplayer. This thing is so easy to use. You could put this arguably at the top of the list in terms of the easiest weapons in all of MW3. The recoil is so simple, so straightforward. So you're going to be able to fry with this thing, especially with this setup that's going to make it even more consistent and reliable. And it's just an aggressive rifle in general. So it's very, very versatile at the same time. ZEM35 compensator per usual, just to keep things nice and simple, help out that stability, limit any potential RNG there. We got the Cryo 6 match barrel, gonna help out with range, velocity, and control. Not do a ton outside of just hurting our mobility a tad bit, but not the end of the world by any means, especially when we can get some mobility back in other areas. Like our strafe speed goes crazy with this build because we've got the choke angled grip on here. Also helps out a little bit with horizontal control as well. So that's a really clutch attachment, specifically here on the Holger 556. We've got the glassless optic, yet again, no surprises. And then also I go for the Ascent Lord stock. A lot of these mobility based stocks unfortunately do a lot for your aiming, idle sway, or your firing aim stability. So I just go in and make it a little bit easier to use. Why not? It's going to help out with just overall accuracy. If you can land more shots, you're going to get more kills. That's as simple of math as you could possibly have in a situation like this. So this is one of the best choices in terms of just easy to use but reliable options. And then lastly here, we've got another MW2 weapon, believe it or not. We've got the FR Avancer. This thing's TTK in that mid-range and like close range areas. Ridiculously good. Even for an MW2 gun, it holds its own up against a lot of SMGs and a lot of other rifles from both games. So get used to the control in this thing. It's not too crazy. You're gonna be sitting pretty in those close and mid-range gunfights. You can play super aggressive with this thing, and it's gonna pay off quite nicely here. Now, I don't mind the iron sights, quite honestly. They're pretty clean, all things considered, so I don't go for an optic. I go for the recon stock pad. Helps out with some general sprint speed, some ADS speed. It's not the craziest thing in the world because, again, a lot of MW2 attachments aren't great, but it's also not hurting the cons all that much. With the recoil control, we get that back super easy. 45 round extended mag, just because the fire rate here is kind of crazy. You do burn through ammo, so having that safety net is certainly nice. That said, if you're comfortable with 30, you could drop this and put on a laser for mobility. You could put on a rear grip or a comb for mobility. That would work well too. Bruen heavy support just to keep things simple in terms of control. It's going to help make it a lot more predictable, limiting that horizontal bounce and adding in some gun kick and some idle sway in there. We've got the compensators, M35 yet again. And I also go for the FR435 barrel, better control, better velocity as well. The thing is here is that this is already a base, very aggressive rifle, so we can extend the range out some and give it some versatility in the mid-range, maybe even into some early long range, while also keeping it super dominant in the first 10, 15, 20 meters as well. So pretty versatile for an MW2 gun, kind of slept on. Wish it got a little bit more attention alongside several other MW2 guns for that matter. But that being said, that's going to wrap things up for this one. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.